G'day guys, it's Raz from Exit Strategy, just trying to set up a little video recording to help people set up their Tripwire. We're trialing this mapping tool at the moment from Pathfinder. The first things that you're going to want to do for this tool is you're going to want to make sure you're on the right URL at the top of the screen here. So our URL as Unchained Alliance is tripwire.unchainedalliance.org. This has also been added to the document that Alex wrote, which you can find in important info. If you have just searched for Tripwire and you are on the URL that says tripwireevesapps.com, that's not going to work for you. It needs to be this URL for you to log into our actual map. What you're going to do once you land on that domain is you're just going to go over here to this register button, click in user, and then just log in with EVE Online. It's just like logging into any other place in EVE. You just select your turn, authorize it, and you're done. You'll be redirected back to the page where you actually have to log in. So when you've registered, you can just click on this login button at the top of your screen, click on SSO, and then you log in, select your turn that you want to authorize for the map, and you log in that way. Now, if you are a new user to the map, chances are you're probably going to see something like this, where you're stuck in JITA. This is because you need to select which system you need to see, and you also need to update your mask. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change this name from, we're going to change this to deep, and we're going to put the J code in for deep. You know, when I'm not being a pleb and doing it wrong. So J214739 is our J code. So that's now updated to deep. The second thing you need to do is we need to come into our account settings just by clicking these little gears at the top of the screen there. Account settings, and in here you've got a set of masks. Select the corporate marks down here where it says Unchained Alliance. This has been set up by the leadership team, so it includes all the corporations that are part of our alliance that need access to the map. Once you've selected that, just push save, and the map will appear. A little bit about the map. So there's a couple of handy little things that you can do off the bat. The first one is trying to understand these lines. So they've got different colors here. Over here there's a little legend you can hover over. It'll tell you whether or not there's a fresh wormhole, which is stable. End of life, which is like a dotted line. In Pathfinder, it was flagged as like a purple line. D-stab and crit, or VOC, as some people call it, is same colors, yellow and red. And green is a frig hole. So you can see from the C6 here that there's a frig hole going to the C4. Next up, we'll have a look at preferences. Some of these will make your lives easier, and anything you change in here is only for you. It does not affect anyone else, so don't be scared to see what works for you. Off the bat, show map grid lines. So this just puts lines on Tripwire for you. So I've got it set to no because I don't see the point of them, but if you select that to yes and say save, it just adds these lines here. Totally preference, it's up to you what you want to do. So I keep that to no. Most people, from what I understand, are using signature ID here, and I prefer this. That means that on the map, it's going to show you the ID, or the SIG from the previous system that you put in up here, but we'll go into that later. It aligns with the bookmark system that we use. So it's going to make it easier for when you bookmark it, and the node automatically just shows that signature once you've updated it. We've got show sig name on maps. So when you jump a hole, so for example, when you jump from this C1 to BDT, if they've put like the identifiers, let's just say that this is the low sec from the C1 because you've got the L there, it will automatically throw the J code in there for you. What you can do here is you can either say put the J code in or show me what to do, and it's just going to it's going to show you the J code and whatever someone's written in there. So this is notes. So in Pathfinder, this was reflected as someone putting like, Hard Knocks Farm or something similar to that in the notes on the map. So in here, you can say system name prefix, save it, and now you can see that there's a note there for deep, and then it's got the J code after it. Can be helpful. I'm personally not a fan, just because look, it throws everything out of alignment and my OCD triggers go off. So we're just going to swap that back. We've got show routes as blobs up to, so I will talk about that when I show you how to do favorites. You don't really need to change any of this stuff here. One thing I will comment on is the signature paste default life. So this is when you add a new sig to the map, and how long it should exist for before it disappears. I choose 7 days. We all know that wormholes are 24 hours and under. In some cases, I don't know if it happens a lot, but I've heard they can be longer than that. But relic sites, data sites, all that kind of stuff are longer. I've seen relic sites go for days. So I set this to 7 days because if something in the chain is having its sig updated, it's going to be overwritten anyway. So that's just why I keep that like that. It's entirely up to you. Chain renderer, background image. So I currently have my background image set to a kind of like a funky blue color. You can see it on the side here. If you delete that, it throws in the default background. You can do this with any image, like you just have to grab the image's URL from the net. Go in here, just stick it in there, and it just changes it. For me, it just makes it a little bit easier to read. Turn those grid lines off again. Then we go down here, we've got chain renderer. So org chart. Org chart is the default setting, which makes the chain look like this. There's also a radial system. It can be pretty, and people sometimes prefer this. For me personally, if there are a whole bunch of sigs and prefixes and all that kind of jazz on the map, it can be a little bit difficult to read. But it does look kind of cool if you've got like tons of chains coming off here and it kind of like this massive spiral effect. But for the purpose of scanning, I keep it at org chart because it's a little bit easier to use. UI scale just, it keeps sort of the size of things aligned with each other. So it's up to you what you want to do. If you've got bad eyesight, maybe throw a couple of notches on there. I keep it at 1, and then if it's late or I'm drunk or whatever, I've put it up to like 1.5 so I don't make any mistakes. And we've got personal statistics. You can't change anything here. It's literally just tracking what changes you're making on the map. So I'm going to change all those back. The second thing we have is, and it's a common question that comes up a lot, is how do I know how many jumps to, example, the trade hub like Jita, Amar, Rands, Dodixie, those types of things. This is the way I prefer to do it. There are other people that are sort of going through the Tripwire notes and going, oh, you can just add a new tab for each one, and that could be, in my mind, a real pain in the ass to manage. So what you can do is you can go up here and add your favorite systems. So you can say Jita, and then that will find Jita up here, and you just mark it as favorite by clicking on this. So I have added, and this is just for you. Adding favorites to this does not change it for anybody else. But what the benefits of doing that is you can then say, okay, looking at this map, you can see that there's a low sec here, there's a null sec here, there's a null sec, low sec, high sec. You can then turn on your favorites by clicking on this little star. And when that loads, it's going to put your favorites connected to those systems. So this low sec is 6 jumps to Dodixie, 15 jumps to Ren, 17 to Amar, and 8 to Jita. And it will just do that for every entrance to high sec, or whenever there's a entry into known space is probably a better way of saying it. And it will do that across the map. For me personally, I will only ever turn this on if I'm looking for an entrance to HiSec. But otherwise I leave it off because you can see that it just expands the map like crazy, pushes it all out, and then you have to sort of scroll backwards and forwards to find what you're looking for. This is also sort of where earlier on I showed you blobs in your settings. It's in your preferences actually, but in here, see how you've got like Jita. If you click on Rani, for example, it's telling us that it's these numbers to Jita, Amara, Renster, Dixie. Those are my favorites. If I come in here and I go to my preferences, I've got show route as blobs up to. I've got that turned off so it only shows me numbers. But if I say show me 10 jumps and save that, and then we click on it again, oh no, there we go, click on that one. So it's showing me the blobs as like high sec, low sec, null sec. So it's only doing that up to 10 blobs. Once it hits 10 blobs, it's going to show the number. I'm not a fan of the blobs just because when you get into the system, you can set your autopilot, or if you've got assets in those locations, it's just going to tell you. If you want to see the change, you can set your autopilot and it will just show you. Completely up to you how you want to view that. It's all down to your personal preferences. So that is pretty much it. I'm sure there is just so much more you can do with it. Like you can add tabs in here if you want to track like your farm or whatever. You can just say J, I can't even remember a J code. I'm just going to put a random one in. And then you click on that and let's just pretend this is my farm. And then you can create your chain from there, and you can also add notes and things like that up here. So in deep, just back on the deep chain, let's just say we know who owns this farm or this hole. We can just say, this is HK farm, or you can just write HK farm, something like that, just so that when whoever clicks on it will see this note here. This text box has a lot of it's very dynamic. Like you can make the text bigger, you can make it pop with a bit of color, just so it really stands out. It can be really helpful for people when they're looking at it, and anyone can edit these notes once you've added it. So it's all good there. The next important thing is signatures. So when you are scanning, this is something that you should be doing anyway from when we were using Pathfinder, but when you scan all the signatures, right? Not the anomalies, just the celestials. And that's so we know what they are. So when we click on deep here, we can see that there's 2 SIGs that have been scanned. And we will look at Tripwire, we can see that these are the only 2 holes coming off here. Further down, this one only has 3. I went and checked this earlier, so that's all good. This C6, you can see that someone has scanned all of the SIGs here, and they've added them all in. The reason it's important to scan all of these signatures is that, let's just say you scanned these 12 hours ago, someone jumps into that hole and there's only 3 SIGs up here. Let's just say that. There would be no way for that person to know that any of those other signatures are a potential wormhole. So it just saves your mates, your corpies, your bros, whatever you want to call it. Saves everyone a whole bunch of time if you just scan all the SIGs. The beauty of Tripwire, and I really like this, is that you can just copy your SIGs in from your probe scanner. So I just quickly do that. So we can see now that there is a new SIG in deep. So I'm just going to jump onto Tripwire here, click on deep, and I'm going to paste that in. You can see a little thing popped up there that just says like if there's any old SIGs, it removes them. Now when you do that, it will remove, if you say, let's just say we had a C3 connected to deep, right? If that SIG had expired here and we remove it, then the whole chain connected to that C3 also gets removed. So just remember that if you're going to do that, just double check that nobody's in the chain before you do it. Otherwise, you get people stressing out about they can't get their DSTs and all that kind of jazz in. So I'm just going to head off to, and I'll just go to a safe, I guess. I'm going to scan down that new SIG for OCW. You'll have to excuse any background noise coming through. I have a feeling my lunch is on the way and there might be a big clang for a plate being dropped on my desk. What's that? I didn't even look at what that is. That should be enough. Okay, so we've now scanned that down. We're just going to throw that into the relics folder. 2 days should be enough. Now if I go back and I copy paste all of those signatures and I open up Tripwire, you can just paste that in and it will update the same way as you would use the lazy delete feature in Pathfinder. So it won't remove any other signatures that are there. It will just throw in anything that's been updated. Really handy tool. Saves you having to sort of lazy delete everything and then double check it. You can just copy it all and paste it straight in. Personally, so far, I didn't used to like Tripwire at all, but I'm coming around to it. I'm finding that scanning my chains is a lot faster. Once you scan these down and you identify the holes, you can just sort of double click on these and you can say what type of wormhole it is. Like this is where you'd put like your K162. And then you might say in here it goes to a class, whatever class that is, and you're done. Like you just save it and it puts the extra node here. Let's just say in here there's probably a sig for RHG. There it is. Whoever scanned this just didn't put in what that is, so it could be like a a V911, which it knows is a C5. I'm going to save that and then it updates that node to C5. And then all you have to do from here would be jump the hole and then it will enter the J code in there and you know that that J code with this bookmark is a C5. I'm just going to remove that because I don't actually know if it's a C5, but we're just going to get rid of that and then it updates it back to blank. So that is it. Yeah, I don't really know what else to put on here. I just wanted to address sort of the main questions that have been coming up. And I hope it was useful. All right, cheers. Happy scanning.